This exciting video on ancient Greece will feature Greek politics, and specifically the birthplace of democracy, Athens. In this overhead view of Athens, you will notice a very large hill known as the Acropolis. Southwest of this famous hill, you will see another smaller hill marked by a golden arrow. This is known as the Pnyx. The Pnyx is where Athenians would assemble, speak their mind, and vote. In the background, you will now get a close-up view of the Acropolis. And beneath us, the most famous site for Athenian democracy, the Pnyx. In this particular video, we will be role-playing as a time traveler who is interested in learning more about the politics of ancient Athens. To get to the Pnyx, we will be riding atop the mighty mythological horse known as Pegasus. The Pegasus was a horse with wings who flew into battle against the fire-breathing monster known as the Chimera. The Pegasus isn't real, so what do you think the ancient Greeks actually used for transportation? Notice the amazing detail and artistry on the columns to the left and right. Can you make any connections to those columns? Have you seen them in the modern world today? Democracy, a system where people can vote and express their own ideas, have a say in government. It all started here on this hill.
Welcome, wanderer, to the democratic center of Athens, otherwise known as the Pnyx. My name is Aspasia. Though I am not originally from Athens, I have climbed to the top of its social ladder using my wit and intellect. I've even earned the love of Pericles, one of the most powerful men in the city. The mind truly is a beautiful thing. The battles fought here may be more intellectual than bloody, but they are no less spectacular. These outcomes will affect an entire city in a different way. The Pnyx was the meeting place of the Athenian assembly and the physical embodiment of democracy at work. This tour will give you insight into how citizens made decisions and kept the city running. We can talk more when you have finished the tour. See you soon, wanderer.
The Athenian assembly was known as the Ecclesia. It met at the Pnyx 40 times a year to discuss various civic matters, and each session usually lasted a few hours. The word Pnyx is believed to mean something close to packed together. This was probably a reference to the fact that during meetings of the Ecclesia, the location would be filled to its capacity, with citizens packed in practically shoulder to shoulder. All male citizens were allowed to directly participate in the democratic process. Those over 20 years old had the right to speak and vote, while those over 30 could be elected to the higher position of magistrate. In total, there were approximately 30,000 citizens in Athens in the classical period. To draft and adopt decrees, 6,000 of them had to attend the meeting.
Men over the age of 20 were allowed to vote. Which groups of people were not allowed to vote? Not every ancient Greek city was a democracy. In fact, most cities in the classical period functioned under two other forms of government: oligarchy or tyranny. Oligarchies are ruled by a small group of people. One example of an oligarchy is Sparta, where a council of 28 elders controlled the majority of the political process. Tyranny, meanwhile, involved the ruling of a popular leader known as a tyrant. Tyrants would often seize control of cities in the face of external threats. What are some pros and cons of these three forms of government? Democracies, oligarchies, and tyrannies.
Citizens came from all over Attica's 10 districts to attend the meetings of the Ecclesia. The meeting was presided over by an executive council called the Prytanes. Every session began with a sacrifice to Zeus Agoreos, the patron of the assembly. During the meeting, citizens delivered speeches from the Pnyx's platform on whatever issues the city faced. Afterwards, the issue was voted on with a show of hands from the gathered assembly. The Ecclesia made important decisions about subjects like grain importation, expenses, and declarations of war. While they could not directly enact laws, they had a say in appointing Athens' legislators, which gave them a large role in shaping the city's daily operations.
There are two forms of democracy. The first is direct democracy, where everybody votes. The second is representative democracy, where you vote for leaders who then go on to represent you and vote for you. What are some pros and cons of both kinds? Which kind do we have in the United States?
While some citizens only participated in the sessions of the Ecclesia, others could become more involved in democracy as magistrates. Magistrates were elected from among Athenian citizens over 30. They were often successful orators and charismatic politicians, and they held much more sway over important decisions than the average citizen. One of the most famous magistrates was Pericles, who was so popular he held his position for 15 years.
The name Pericles is synonymous with democracy. Pericles also oversaw the construction of the Parthenon, one of the most famous buildings in all of Greece. The project took 15 years to complete.
In theory, every Athenian citizen over the age of 20 had the right to participate in the assembly. However, some of them lived far from the city, and others could not financially afford to miss a day of work to attend meetings. For these reasons, the city introduced a special allowance called a misthos ecclesiasticos in the 4th century BCE, meant to encourage participation. Originally, it was 2 obols, but the politician Cleon raised it to 3.
Participation is a key element of democracy. If you can't get the majority to participate, democracy simply does not work. This was a problem in ancient Athens, when people didn't always show up to the assembly meetings. To prevent this, Athens closed all local shops so that people would be funneled into the assembly. Later on in history, Athens decided to actually pay its citizens to come. Since we practice democracy in the United States, and only approximately half of registered voters show up to vote, would either of these ideas be a good idea to enact nowadays, or a terrible idea? You decide.
Athens introduced several innovations that heavily influenced modern society, including theater, architecture, and philosophy. However, their greatest contribution was their democratic government, which introduced the concept of a city ruled by its citizens. The decision to adopt democracy as a government, a choice made in 508 BCE, shaped civilization as we know it, and continues to affect us today.
Hello again, Wanderer. I trust you appreciated learning about the inner workings of the city. Is there anything else you'd like to do? Then let's start with a simple question. Approximately how many citizens were in Athens in my time? Yes, there were approximately 30,000 citizens in Athens, although the population as a whole was much larger. On to the second question. Who of the following was a famous Athenian magistrate? Yes, Pericles was an extremely popular magistrate who managed to keep his position for 15 years. Only one question left. What does the word Pnyx mean? Correct. The Pnyx was usually crowded with citizens attending meetings of the Ecclesia. You know enough about democracy to be a politician yourself. Well done, Wanderer. Very well. Farewell, wanderer.
There are 3 more discoveries to look at before we go. When the text comes up on the screen, please pause and read. I hope you picked up these key facts from the reading you just did. Only 5% of Athenians were elected to official positions each year. Water in a vase was used to give citizens equal time when they're speaking at the assembly, like an hourglass. And ostracism means you could be banned for 10 years from the city. Democracy truly is a wonderful and interesting thing, and it all started here in ancient Greece. We now find ourselves in Sparta, the political and military rival of Athens. Politics in Sparta definitely have some similarities, but clearly more differences. We are about to embark on yet another tour. When on the tour, look for those differences. Which form of government do you like better? Which one do you think worked better at the time? Which one do you think would work better today?
Greetings, visitor. You stand in Sparta's political center, where all of the city's most important decisions were made. You should feel honored. My name is Leonidas. I am a king of Sparta. But do not think me some idle aristocrat softened by luxury. When Spartans go to war, I stand alongside them shield to shield, and my spear tastes the same blood as those of my men. Spartans may be unequaled on the battlefield, but some situations are better solved by a meeting of minds than a clash of swords. Not many, mind you, but some. Sparta's political system was unique in the Greek world. While Athenians wasted hours on end whining and wagging their tongues at each other, Spartan kings made their decisions swiftly and deliberately. They preferred action over words. Come find me again when you finish your visit. We will speak more then. Farewell.
Sparta's political system differed from most of Greece's. One of its most distinctive features was that it was ruled by two kings. These kings belonged to two separate dynasties, the Eurypontids and the Aegeads, both of which were said to be descended from Heracles. Both kings shared equal powers, and disputes between them required the intervention of special magistrates known as ephors. However, if one of the kings were more charismatic or experienced, they could influence the weaker king's choices.
The Spartan political system had many different facets. It was a bit of an oligarchy and democracy, but it was also a monarchy, first and foremost, the rule of two kings. Do you think having this blend of a monarchy, a democracy, and an oligarchy together is a good idea? Is the idea of having two kings a good idea? As we end our journey as a Spartan warrior running through the streets of Sparta, think about this final question. How does the government of Athens and Sparta differ? And in which ways do you think one is better than the other? Thank you for joining us on this exciting journey through the political system of ancient Greece, featuring Athens and Sparta. I hope you've enjoyed your time. Stay well.
Τι συνέβη μόλις?